Welcome to the Call to Be Different Reflecting Christ podcast. On this podcast, we'll explore what it means to try and live different by trying to live by God's standards instead of humans. So today I was going to continue our series on Moses and his brother Aaron, but I decided that I really wanted to talk about something that has caught my attention in the media, and that is the story of Nikolas Cruz. If you're unaware of this gentleman, he is a young individual who attended Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, and he chose on February 14th, Valentine's Day of all days, 2018, to go into his high school and to shoot and kill as many people as he possibly could. He ended up killing 14 students and 3 adults and injuring an additional 17 individuals as well. This is a horrible story, and I will never ever sit back as a Christian and say we should just throw our hands up and be like, oh well, there's nothing we can do. No, we absolutely should assert justice through the judicial system. I personally believe that the justice that came across yesterday with the 17 life sentences without the possibility of parole is the perfect sentence. Now, I believe this because we do not want to continue the ripple effect of sin. Now, I say that in a fact of whatever happened to his mother and why ever she chose to become a drunk and a drug abuser and a prostitute. Those are ripples effects of sin that she chose in her life, and she ended up getting pregnant with not just one baby, but 3 babies, and possibly even more. She could have had miscarriages due to her drug abuse and alcohol addiction, but Nikolas Cruz was the ripple effect of her sin. And what ended up happening was she had this baby who has clearly been diagnosed with a lot of issues, a lot of mental issues, a lot of learning issues. He is just a product of sin, and it's incredibly sad that we are not looking at him as an individual. I feel horrific for the life that he has led. Does that excuse what he has done? Absolutely not. He needs to have justice served over him, and I do believe that we did it properly yesterday. Now, I will say this because the 12 jurors, I think it's so easy as a person who's just a spectator sitting back and looking at these jurors and saying, oh, you should give him the death penalty. You should give him the death penalty. Well, now we are asking for that ripple effect of sin from his mother to be, through his ripple effect of murdering, to be thrown on them as a ripple effect of now his life is in their hands. And I do not think that that is a fair thing to do. I think regardless, you can say, it's like eye for an eye in the Old Testament. I don't believe that. I believe that was for certain situations back in the Old Testament. I believe now we are called to forgive people of their sins and allow God to judge them. It's not our duty, it's not our job, and it's not our right. Just as it says in Job, he says that God gives and he takes away, and Job is absolutely right that it is God's ultimate decision whether this individual lives or dies. And we also have to be aware that these individuals that died that day are under God's care as well. The most important things that we can do as a Christian is 1, recognize the ripple effect of sin. 2, recognize that we can be called to be a part of the justice system and help with giving due justice. 3, but we need to be aware that we need to stop the ripple effect of sin and bleeding into our own lives. So therefore, I believe that the jurors did the appropriate thing that they should have done and not have allowed more sin to continue on, stopping it in its track and just serving justice and allowing God to serve ultimate justice over Nikolas Cruz. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is what we should be doing. As Christians, we should be praying for the individuals that were involved, the individuals that have been affected, the students that went to that school, the parents who have lost loved ones, the brothers and sisters who have lost loved ones. It's just a horrific thing. No one should have to die like that. And especially as a mother myself, the last thing I would want is to send my child to school and not have them come home. So I feel for these parents, and I do believe that a lot of them are very angry. They showed on the media that these parents are very angry. One parent specifically was very, very angry at the justice system. But I think ultimately we need to remember that what feels like it would be right or justified in the moment is something that could affect us years down the road and our mental health and our decisions, and maybe as our faith changes or grows and we learn more about God, that, somebody might not be in the same position I'm at right now, where I feel God's ultimately the judge and I am not. Somebody might feel like they have authority to judge over someone. They may take it into Christian arguments, and I understand that completely, but I will say that's not biblical. We are called to forgive. We are called to give God the ultimate judgment. And again, that doesn't mean that we cannot say, okay, well, we can't serve justice at all. We do, and we should serve justice. There may be a day where you are called to be a juror on trial, and you need to know what would your answer be, or what would you do if this was something that you were faced with. Above all, we need to pray for the families that have gone through this. Pray for their healing. Pray for them to find God in this horrible, horrible circumstance. We know that God heals all, and time with God heals all. I'm just praying so hard for the individuals who were affected by this, and I'm praying that they will release their anger to God, their hatred towards Nikolas Cruz, their hatred towards the justice system, towards the jurors, towards the judge, towards, anyone and everyone else that they can outwardly throw their anger at, instead of inwardly dealing with what's actually hurting them, which is the loss of their loved one. And nobody wants to lose their loved one, especially when it feels like it's way too early, especially when they're kids. I mean, these kids were 14, 15 years old. I mean, it's just insane to think about that an individual would go in there and do something like this, but love should prevail, and we should realize that. And these families are hurting because they love their children and they feel like their lives were cut off too short, and they absolutely were. But it does not mean that we should continue the ripple effect of sin. And I would bet really good money that he would definitely say, leave it to me. It's not your job. Give your burdens to me, lay them at my feet, and just release your anger and your hate to me. So next week, we're going to talk about Moses and Aaron. We're going to get back on track, but I did want to talk about this. And if you have anything that you feel or you think about this situation, please let me know. I would love to talk about it. I think these hard conversations are what Christians should be having. We shouldn't just sit in the dark and say, oh, I'm a Christian and I don't want to talk about it because I don't want to throw my opinion out there. We should be talking about this stuff. More and more Christians will step up and start saying the truth of God's word, and stop huddling in the background and being pushed over by what society tells us to think, what people tell us to think. We are living right now in a cancel culture where everything is just, if you upset me, we can't talk, or you have to be kicked off, and it's just getting so ridiculous. I feel like now is the best time for us to step up, and that is one of the reasons I created this podcast. So join me next time on Called to Be Different, Reflecting Christ.